Okay, this week's training body part is going to be hamstrings. Now, obviously, hamstrings, calves, glutes all sort of tie into each other. The biggest problem I find with most people with hamstrings is on remote movements like Romanian or stiff leg deadlifts. And primarily, where I see people going wrong there is that they bend at the waist and do not bend at the hip. Now, you need to maintain a neutral lower back and make sure that the movement comes from the hip. If you find you're rounding your back or you're moving your back, then you're going to take the load off the hamstrings and put it onto your lower back. And the other thing is, it's not about how deep you go. So do not measure the effectiveness of the movement by the depth of the bar. Measure the effectiveness of the movement by the feel on your hamstrings. Now, as you lower the bar in a Romanian deadlift or a stiff leg deadlift, now there's some dispute on these as well. To me, a stiff leg deadlift means that your knees are locked, and a Romanian deadlift means that your knees are unlocked. A few people have argued this with me, and they may well be true, but that's how I view it in my eyes. So when I refer to a stiff leg deadlift, I'm referring to the fact that the knees remain locked throughout the movement. When I refer to a Romanian deadlift, I'm referring to the knees are unlocked. Either way, though, as you lower the bar, you drive your glutes backwards away from the bar. You keep your lower back neutral and you bend at the hip. Now, what I find is when you do a stiff leg deadlift of this nature, you get less glute activation but more hip activation, hamstrings and calves. And when you do a Romanian deadlift with your knees unlocked, you get less calf activation but more equal hamstring but more glute activation. You don't need to come all the way up with the movement, and in fact in most cases I find it better if you don't. You come up to about just over 3/4 of range and then go back down, because if you stand upright you relieve all tension on the hamstring. And just work on that flexibility and getting lower every time. Push the glutes back and pull from the hamstring. And this is one of the points that's really going to change the movement for you. You've got to focus and imagine a rope attached at the back of your leg, and you're pulling on that rope in order to lift your upper body. Otherwise, you'll throw it into your hips, you'll throw it into your core, you'll throw it into your lower back. Now, you can go very, very heavy on this, but make sure it's loading the correct part, which is the hamstrings. Now, obviously, the main other exercise for hamstrings, generally direct exercise, is leg curl. Single arm standing, doesn't really matter how you do it, but it's that movement, which is obviously very much an isolation movement. Again, full range. Get that pad up to your arse and let it fully stretch. Make sure the pad sits in the back of your heel, not halfway up your bloody calf. And if the range, as you go through the range, if the pad is moving down your calf and then back up, the machine's set up wrong for you. Either it's a poor machine or just the length, the extension that you've set it at is just incorrect for you. It should sit in the hollow at the back of your heel. Up, control, and lower. And that's it. You know, it's an isolation movement. Focus on pulling from the hamstring. If you're flicking your hips or you're flicking your upper body, then you're using momentum to move the weight. There's nothing wrong with a cheat set, even in this exercise, but make sure that the negative is control and watch your foot position. If your toes turn in, you're going to throw it onto the hamstring on the inner side. If your toes turn out, you're going to throw it more onto the outer side of the hamstring, but make sure you do both positions if you're going to choose that, so that you get an equal load. It's very easy and very common to overdevelop the inner hamstring or the outer hamstring and have an imbalance there. And don't be scared of going heavy, even on an isolation like hamstring curl. Do not be scared on going heavy. Now, personally, I prefer to do the isolation first and then do the deadlifts after. Now, you can do such things as high foot position leg press, but I'm sorry, I disagree with this being a hamstring movement. Yes, it will put more emphasis on the posterior chain, particularly glutes, but its impact on hamstring isn't that direct. You know, it's still going to work the quads, it's still going to work the hips and glutes prior to working the hamstring. So it's same like a lunge. You know, a lunge will hit the hamstring and glute a lot greater, but it's still going to work the quads as its primary movement. Now, I personally prefer to train legs split up into 3 sections. So I do hamstrings, quads, and calves separately. So if you're doing them together, then I can see the use of a high position leg press. But otherwise, to me, it's just an excuse to try and move some big weight and claim it's working your hamstrings. If you're going to work them directly. Some form of stiff leg or Romanian lift, deadlift, and a curl. Be a seated curl, a lying curl, doesn't really matter, a standing curl. They're your direct movements. Now, what I have found is that seated tends to hit the tie-in better into the glute. Another way of hitting this position, though hard to do, is when you go on a lying leg curl, prop yourself up. So put your arms in front, grab the pad, and where you would normally lay your chest on the pad, grab the pad with your hands and push yourself upright. So that what happens is that the pad is here, your body is up here. This will throw the load from the body of the hamstring up to the glute hamstring tie-in. You'll have to use a lot lighter weight, but you will really feel that hit that glute hamstring tie-in hard. It's a difficult one to do. Not only that, your arms are going to be shaking like buggery because you're holding your body weight, but try it. It really does isolate that hamstring glute tie-in. Otherwise, that's it. I've never really done more than 2 exercises on the hamstrings, and my hamstrings have been one of my strongest points. But I did go hard and heavy. And like I said, I favour short duration workouts but high frequency. So I would hit hamstrings twice a week as I would any other body part. Now, effectively with that, you actually sort of what you end up indirectly doing is you get a heart intense hamstring direct workout. And then when you do quads, because you do compound movements like squats and leg press, you get an indirect hamstring recruitment, which effectively flushes the muscle with blood. And as a result, improves nutritional transit and therefore improves recovery. So I found that really effective at building big hamstrings. You get them like that, they're going to hang like a big fat muscle. Otherwise, you know, play around with spacing, but watch your knees. If you go wide spacing on a leg curl, you're going to find it's going to put some pressure on the edges of your knees. So I prefer to keep your knee spacing comfortable and just alter your foot angle to change the emphasis. We'll include glutes into this actually. So, hang on a second. New water bottle. Prezi from my training partner. And then I smashed this one today, so I'm feeling a bit guilty now, to be honest. Anyway, you know, stuff like kickbacks, leg abductors will all also influence these areas, but they're not going to be direct. Obviously, a real heavy hitter for hamstrings is the, oh God, the name escapes me. Oh, what's it called now? Basically the glute raise thing, where you fix your knee and your ankle and then you lower your whole body and use your body weight as a load for a hamstring curl. So instead of you curling the weight with your ankle, your hamstring lowers your whole body. Difficult to do, especially when you're my body weight, but most people will struggle to do them correctly because you need a fair amount of power. So a way of helping this is to use a lat pull down. Kneel on the bench with your back to the stack. Hook your heels under the pads that would normally hold your knees. Grab the bar with a weight attached, and that weight will act as a counterbalance for your body weight. But you really need to try and keep your upper leg, your glute and your lower back in a straight line. So your pivot point is the knee, everything else stays straight. You lean forward to your parallel and then use your glutes and hamstrings to pull yourself back up. By using a light machine, you can offset some of your body weight by putting weight on the machine, and that will allow it to help move. If you're worried about failing on this, then put a bench in front of you so that when you come down, if you do fail, your body's just going to lay on the bench and you're not going to find yourself crashing forward onto the floor. Okay. You can, to some degree, you can obviously use a bench, should I say, that's specifically designed for this, but not every gym has them, and so if not, the lat pull down does make a makeshift bench for this movement. I don't know why my brain can't remember what that movement's called today, but it can't at all. Glue razors? No, I don't know. Anyway, I think you know what I'm on about. And no doubt there'll be millions of comments after this video. Alright, well, maybe a few. Telling me what it is and how the fuck could I forget it. Just having a brain fart at the moment, don't know why. So, there you go. Okay? Any type of leg curl is going to be an isolation movement. Romanian stiff leg deadlifts will work very, very well. And obviously you've got this glute raise movement, which is extremely hard. And I wouldn't attempt it unless you have very light body weight or you've got some experience and some training under your belt and you've got some power in your glutes and hamstrings. Either way, put a bench in front of you off the lat pull down so that you've got some form of protection if you fail. And if you want to reduce body weight, you can either use a training partner or you can use the actual lat pull down machine cable to support. Generally what I do is I attach the rope extensions and then I just hold the rope extensions here as I lean forward. They're the main movements for hamstrings. Okay, they do to me warrant knee training isolation and separately to quads, and the fact that you then hit them indirectly in quad work will just help their recovery because you'll flush them through with nutrient and blood. So there you go, that's it. Okay, take care, and next week we will do calves. Very stubborn muscle, something that a lot of people struggle to get to grow, and to be honest, main reason is you've just got to hit them very fucking hard. They are stubborn as fuck. Okay, so I'll catch you all next week.